Welcome to the Junk Drawer Mamas with your hosts, Deena and Christina Queen. We are so glad you're here with us as we sort through the drama and the trauma of life's hidden struggles to uncover hope and healing with a side of humor on this roller coaster ride we like to call extreme parenting. Whether you're raising a child or a teen with special needs, dealing with challenging behaviors, tackling addiction, mental health issues, or working through the trauma associated with foster care, it's a lot, and we get it. But you don't have to do this alone. So grab a cozy chair, settle in, and let's take this journey together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. We are on episode 30, but we have a little bit different of a program for you today than we normally do. So we just want to share a little bit. I want to say hi, Christina, before I jump in. And
Yes, hi. What a last few days, huh?
it has been a interesting couple of days. So we normally record. Today is Wednesday, the July 23rd, and our episodes always go out on Wednesday. So they're always pre-recorded, and then we upload them and so that you guys can all watch them on Wednesday morning. Well, we're actually recording on Wednesday at here it's 10:14 a.m. And so this will be uploaded directly after we record this. So you might be watching this afternoon. You know, if we have our regular followers that look forward to it every single Wednesday morning, it's a little bit late because we had a family emergency. I had a family emergency. So that's actually what we're going to be talking about. Like, what do you do when life gives you a detour or a disruption and you've got to navigate through that? So one of the things that we share very openly on here is this is not about being perfect. This is about extreme parenting, extreme lives, things like that. We were praying before we started, and Christina used the word privilege. And she said, thank you, God, that we have the privilege of doing this. And it kind of struck my heart because even though we were trying to figure out how can we do this recording. The issue that I had ended up happening on the day that we were supposed to record, which was Monday. And then I wasn't able to make that appointment because of what I was dealing with. And then we couldn't do it on Tuesday. So like, okay, I guess we're actually going to record this on Wednesday and get it out. But it is okay because that is part of what we're doing. And we still have the privilege of showing up, and God still worked things out so that we could do this. But I believe this will probably help somebody else too. So one of the things that is important is always honoring God, no matter what it looks like, how messy it looks like. If it doesn't look the way you want it, we are probably never going to be one of those podcasts that everything looks super perfect and edited. And we don't want it to be that way. You know what I mean? We really just are two moms coming to you, having a conversation, and we'd like to keep it that way unless God decides to do that another way. So anyway, I had an issue with my husband and we had to rush him to the emergency room, and we were in the emergency room for the whole day on Monday, and then he got to stay overnight, and they had to do lots of testing, and he is okay, but there's some follow-up doctor's appointments today. And so what do you do when you have something planned and life disrupts that, and you have a special needs child that now you have to get through? So one of the things I was also dealing with is that every time somebody has to go to the hospital or the doctor, my little girl, Gracie, thinks that the person's going to die because my father, which was her best friend, her papa, her buddy, when he went to the hospital, he didn't come back out. He had a stroke and he went in. It'll be 3 years now, and she still hasn't gotten over. I don't think we ever get over that, but I'm just saying She still hasn't gotten over the loss of her papa. And she still asks me almost on a regular basis, daily basis, when he's coming back to earth. And I always have to pray. And I think I've even shared this. He's not coming back, Gracie. He's with Jesus now. If he came back, he wouldn't be healed. I always going through all this. And so now her father, my husband, is in the hospital, and she's thinking he's going to die. And how do you explain this to a special needs child? That hospitals are not places you go to die, that they're actually there to help you. And sometimes we get sick, and, doctors are there to help you to get better. And so I was dealing with trying to get her to understand, but she was deeply worried and stressed.
Yeah.
And she kept asking me, constantly that, is dad going to be okay? Is dad going to be okay? And trying to get her to understand while I'm navigating caring for my husband, who is in deep distress and, at a level 10 pain, what he was dealing with. And I'm trying to make sure I'm there for him. And thank God that my mom stepped in, and Gracie has camp this week, which is, again, a blessing that she had camp this week, because normally she's with me all the time, 24/7. But, we only do camp in the summertime. And right now it's every other week. And so this happens to be an on week where she's at camp, and my mom was able to pick her up from camp and take her. I didn't end up getting back to her house till very, very late. I got home around midnight and had to get her up and get ready for camp the next day so I can get back to the hospital. Now, this isn't necessarily an extreme situation. I think all parents, families go through these situations. Where it becomes extreme is when you have a child that doesn't understand what's going on and you don't have this big army of people around you to take care of that. But God moved in such miraculous ways in the whole situation. So in our lives, we have to be prepared for those things. And I had to remember that God was the one that he knew this was going to happen. He knew what was going on with my husband. And we still don't know exactly what's happening. There was something that they found out that was kind of like a serendipity. We didn't go, he went in there for this severe migraine headache that was going on for 7 days, which is very unusual. He never has headaches, so that's why it was so unusual. And by the 7th day, I'm like, I don't care. We're getting you into the hospital. And I'm so glad that we did because I don't know, he might have even gone into a seizure or whatever. And then after the CT scan and the MRI, they didn't actually find anything going on that was causing the headache, but they found this other issue that is linked to his unhealed ear infections that's been there that could potentially be very dangerous. So it was like, if we hadn't gone in for the headache, we would have never found this other issue. So God was moving in that area. They were able to get the headache down to the point where it was functional and he could actually really sit up and, be able to talk and everything. And now he's, getting help for that. But we still pray that God will do a supernatural healing for the headache or whatever's going on right now. It's being managed with pain medicine and muscle relaxers. But now, so when you get in that situation, the other parent is now taking care of the spouse and the child. Now, Christina has 11 kids. Now she also has kind of an army around her to help her sometimes so that she does have other people that can come in. But if she were to have to pull away from all those kids to deal with her husband because he was in need of her care, because obviously in the order of God's kingdom, it is God first, your spouse, and then your children. And I know a lot of moms don't think that, especially special needs moms do not think that their spouse comes before their children, but in God's biblical kingdom, it does.
Yeah.
And so your spouse is always above that. Now, obviously, we're not neglecting our children, but I'm saying if there is a responsible level, you must be there in that level. Now, again, this could be one of those things that a lot of people might say, no way, my special needs child comes first. If you want God's protection and his guidance and all of that, we have to stay within his order. God is a God of order. And it's not meant to harm us or to hurt us. It is meant for us to actually get his protection and to be able to have everything, the abundant blessings that he wants to give us. We can't go outside of that order if we want all of that. Now, that's probably a whole other podcast episode. So anyway, my responsibility was to my husband. And, God was able to meet all the needs of Gracie and everything else. So, but while I was at the hospital, we were laughing about this because I was like, moms don't really get to have this kind of a break. Because he was saying that he had a whole week where he was kind of laying on the couch because he was in severe pain. And I understand what that's like because I've dealt with severe headaches most of my life. And so he was dealing with that. But then he got a week off of work afterwards so he could heal. And he's like, I just need to rest. I'm like, moms don't get to rest. If I was sick, I would still have to take care of my child and cook dinner and all of that. So we were joking about how men tend to be, much more, I would say, less strength when they're going through a sickness.
Yeah.
And we were laughing about it. I said, it's not just you. I said, that is a very commonly known thing.
Yeah.
It's something that comedians use as content. And then it just dawned on me, like, God did get, like, there's things that they deal with that we don't. So just to be fair to all guys out there are things you deal with that we don't. There are things that God has equipped you with that we don't. But when it comes to like dealing with pain or dealing with crisis or dealing with a sickness, I think that God gave women or moms the supernatural strength to do that. So although I didn't necessarily like what I was doing, I was able to do it. God gave me the strength to do that. I wasn't doing it in my own strength. I was able to care for him and all the needs when he was in severe pain and vomiting and all that. I'm right there as the nurse, kind of with the other nurses caring for him because God gave me the strength to do that. Now, I don't know if a guy can do the same thing. Maybe. I don't know. I can't imagine my husband doing that. I can imagine him saying, nope, that's the job for the nurse. I'm going to sit here in the waiting room and wait. Anyway, we had a lot of laughs. Honestly, we did. We were joking about it and laughing about it. We did find humor in a lot of that. But this is just, again, where I feel like God comes in when there's a disruption or an emergency. If you are pressed into him and he is partnering with you, you are partnering with him, in your role as a wife and a mom, then the safest place you are is with him. There's not he's
Right, right,
not going to leave you or forsake you, no matter how dire the situation is. So
right.
anyway, I'm gonna let
And
Christina just share her thoughts
it's
on this.
those times though too. It's those times when we are going through the tough stuff and the unexpected and the extreme that God gets to show us who he wants to be to us and for us in those times and even through us.
Mm,
Because you get opportunities in situations like that when you are in the emergency room or when you're around other people to show Jesus through how you're communicating and talking and being towards your spouse in those situations, because I guarantee these hot emergency room people have seen the spouses come in that are all stressed out and arguing the whole time they're there and things. So we can look at it as an opportunity to represent him well, even in the toughest situations, even in the stressful ones where you don't know what the outcome. I mean, I know what had to cross your guys' mind being in there. Are they going to find a tumor? Are they going to find something extreme?
exactly.
Is this because all of us watch TV, all of us has seen those shows where like, oh, he went in with the headache and he came out with 2 months to live. I mean,
Right. Well,
it's
that was why they were
reality.
so serious about the headache. It wasn't
Right,
just a headache because it could have been an aneurysm, it could have been a brain bleed, a
right,
clot. They had to
exactly.
rule all that out.
Yes. So it's
So
scary, and how we represent and how we show up in life is our testimony to other people. That's showing Christ and what that looks like to the world. So we always have something that even in those tough situations that God is trying to teach us or show us, even in those times, actually way more so than just our everyday mundane lives. I know you guys can probably hear my kiddos screaming in the background.
yeah, I actually think it's
They
kind of cool. It's like, yep, this we are. This is not our normal
Yes,
recording.
they are
Your kids
they
are all
are
home
kind
right
of
now, and
I'm
I
trying to
love it.
watch them over here on the camera, but my 21-year-old is in there with them, and she's just not really mastered the skill of keeping them quiet.
It's okay.
So, but hey, at least I
If
have
you're a
some kind
mom
of help.
watching, then you get it. So that's
Right,
again, this isn't a perfect podcast. This is real life,
right. Yep,
as
you
on
will
the
be
court
hearing my kids
happening right
today.
now.
Somebody just shut the door into the family room, so it might get a little bit quieter, but that might mean that they're going to get even louder. Who knows? So, but yeah, those times when it feels like we're shaken to our core is when
Mm,
God can do a new thing in us in a new level and brings out things that we didn't even realize that we were dealing with. And is able to kind of bring it to the surface, pull it out of that junk drawer, and expose it so it can be dealt with. Like, wow, I didn't even know I had that issue. I didn't even, and some of those times too, when we're dealing with potentially life threatening things, there's an intimacy in that we don't
absolutely.
experience as couples. And a lot of times, you just get the same old in your relationship and your situation, and things can be exposed in those type of situations that might not have been exposed or may not have been exposed for years. That God's like, you guys need to see this, whether it's something you needed to see in him or maybe he needed to see in you. God doesn't
Hmm.
waste things. God doesn't waste these situations. Everything is an opportunity to grow in grace or love or get closer to him. And in relationships, God works everything together for our good. And you get to see who all's there for you too in your corner in
Yes.
times like this.
I love what you said that they get to see a side of you. So I think in marriage, especially if you've been in marriage for a long time, as both Christine and Doug and I are actually going to be celebrating 26 years coming up in like 2 weeks here. And there are, we've had good moments and bad moments and all the moments in
Yep.
between. But when you're in this situation, I think especially for a guy, it's very difficult for them to receive help or
Yeah.
to be seen as vulnerable. So my husband is one of those people. He's not very emotional. I've never seen him cry in all the years we've been married. He's very kind of a strong kind of guy, very funny. He's got this sarcastic personality, like everything's fine, everything's a joke. He was actually making a lot of jokes with the hospital staff, and some of them weren't getting it. He was like, "These people are so uptight," and I'm like, "But they're dealing with sick people all day. They're not here for humor." But anyway, there was some that were playing the banter back and forth, but that's his way of coping, I think, with some of the stuff that was going on. But our spouses may not see everything we're doing in that moment. So there was a moment where I was feeling like, I don't know how I was just feeling like he doesn't necessarily you're so focused on your own pain that you can't see that there's somebody right there with you. But there will come a point that God will reveal and show you as the other spouse that your spouse was there for you. There are times that I didn't even know that my spouse was there for me. And later, it was later after that event had gone away or whatever the situation was, he did show me how much my husband has been there for me and given that. Now, again, maybe that's not something I can see on a daily basis. And we tend to be very critical when we're stuck in our own pride. And that's something that God will, deal with you on. But there was a moment when we were sitting in the emergency area, which is funny because the emergency area said we were on the fast track. There was nothing fast track about it. We got there at like 10 in the morning, and it was probably by 10 p.m. before they even gave him any pain medicine. And he didn't get into his actual room until 11:30 p.m. There was nothing fast track about it. So anyway, he was in a lot of discomfort. And at first I was kind of joking with him because he's like, I just can't get comfortable. I'm like, just deal with the fact that it's not going to be comfortable. I said, try having a baby. There's nothing comfortable having a baby, especially when you're in labor. There's no comfort. Just deal with the fact that in this little tiny emergency room bed, there's not going to be comfort. Yeah. But he was a moment he sat up and I said, I wish I could take this pain away for you. And I said, what do you need? He said, a hug. And I was like, oh, now mind you, my husband is not a cuddly kind of person, but he leaned forward and hugged me. And I just sort of like was there with him for that moment and just being that and that connection. Cause you said gives you a moment of intimacy that you might not have had. Okay. So that moment he just needed me to do that. So as he was laying in the bed, he was kind of caressing my hand, or he wanted his hand on my leg. And there was a moment where his hand was kind of touching my hand. And I brought up the fact that that was the last picture that I took of my mom and dad. When my dad was in the hospital, her hand was on his and he was holding her hand. And I took a picture of their like aged hands. It was the last photo in my dad's memorial photo. So I was telling my husband that. He pulls his hand away and he's like, what are you talking about? Don't take a picture of our hands. And we laughed. There was a moment where we were laughing about it, So we, in that very stressful situation where he was at a level 10 pain, we still found a moment to laugh about it and find an intimate connection. Intimacy can look lots of different ways.
Right. Didn't you say?
Thank you for saying that, because I was like,
didn't you say he said, "Don't take a picture of my hand because I'm not going to die." Like
right,
he didn't want. It's like,
don't
what are you trying to say?
Yes.
Yeah. What are you trying to say?
But there were funny moments in there,
right.
And then there was also a time when the neurologist came into the room the next day. We introduced ourselves and he said to Doug, he said, something, he asked why it took 7 days to get into the hospital for the headache. And I said, because I finally said, enough's enough, you're going in. And he looked at Doug and he says, a good wife could save your life. Yeah. And I said, thank you. I really love you. And he said, but also a bad wife can kill it. And I said, I agree 100%. But basically what he's saying is if you have a good woman beside you, she could literally save your life. And, and if we're submitted to God, then yes, God will use us for those challenging things that our spouse might need to hear or whatever. Again, if you've got a real strong person, like, I'm fine, just take an aspirin and lay down. Sometimes an aspirin and laying down isn't going to do it. And you need somebody that's a strong person in their life that can get them to do something. And your spouse is usually that one to do that. But, I can't do that without the partnership of God, because then my own flesh gets in the way, my own opinion gets in the way. And a lot of times I think again, this is not going to be a popular thing. I think wives can destroy their husbands by demasculating them and yelling at them and making them feel less than. Now, I'm not saying husbands don't have their way of hurting women too, for sure.
It's the same. Yeah, men can do the same thing to their wives and tear them down to the point. Any person that's in a close relationship with another person can absolutely do that if we allow it.
Yes.
If we allow it, the other person has to allow it to the point to where they don't walk away and say enough is enough, because no person deserves to be treated that way. Mm-hmm. So, we teach people how to treat us, and, we'll put up with, whatever we put up with until we're done, until we don't anymore. And I've always told my kids that, you teach people, if you don't want to be treated that way, don't allow it. Just don't allow it. And that goes for a lot of different areas in life. And I know that you cannot control everything, but even in a job, you can choose to change and move to another job. And that can be a hard decision for some people, because, if you're getting a pay cut or there's a little bit of instability, but ultimately you've got to decide whether your happiness and whether your well-being is worth being disrespected and yelled at all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
sometimes God has you in that situation to be the light. But
absolutely.
if he does call you to that, then you're going
He'll
to
give you the grace.
I was just going to say that. And
Yep.
he'll give you that peace that surpasses all understanding. I'm not saying it won't be challenging, but sometimes, especially if you keep finding yourself in those same situations, like, why am I always in a job where there's difficult people? I've
Yeah.
mentioned this to my son because a lot of times he seems like he gets very difficult bosses or people that are just like, you almost feel like they're demon possessed because they're
Yeah.
so evil. And I'm like, maybe you're in that situation because you're the light. Instead
Yeah.
of moving from job to job, maybe you're there that's supposed to bring that light to them. Maybe you're the only
Right.
Jesus they will ever see.
Yeah.
And so sometimes God does. I'm not saying that's the case all the time. Like, you're right. You don't want to be in a situation where your well-being is not
Yeah.
being taken care of. But again, when you
That's
partner
where the
with God,
discernment, yeah,
yeah,
discernment. God will give you wisdom and discernment
yeah,
on that if you're in relationship with Him. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously very important to stay in a connected, close relationship with God, just for survival. Period.
mhm.
Survival in every area. um, if you're a Christian, especially, it requires staying in close connection with God. People can obviously survive life without Him, but there's a peace that comes with knowing that He's there and He's
Mhm.
never leaving and He's never going anywhere. He will always be there,
And
and that
sometimes,
everything will always come out the way
yes,
that He designed it to.
sometimes
Ultimately,
the other person needs to feel your peace. Like,
yeah,
sometimes you're the space holder for the peace. So I know that was the situation with my husband at the hospital. And so you have to be strong enough to hold the space for the
yes,
two of you.
yeah,
If you're not I don't think I could do that. No, I mean, I guess everybody does it. If you're married, it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or non-Christian or whatever. Everybody has situations where they're going to have to step up, and your adrenaline is going, especially if it's a critical situation. You don't know from one minute to the next what's going to happen. But I'm saying where you can do that stressed out and worried, or you can do that with peace. And I did have such a peace. It didn't matter what test was going to have to be done. I don't know. I just felt very much at peace. So when people were praying, I was like, I don't know. I just feel like God's got this. I don't really have I'm not stressed about it. I was more stressed about my husband, who was like, he couldn't sit still for 3 seconds trying to get his comfort. And I was like, okay, now you're driving me nuts. The blankets are on the floor. The blankets are on the bed. The blankets are on the floor. He wants that, wants this, wants that. Is
Well,
like,
like you said about being pregnant, you can't get comfortable.
yeah.
There's no comfort in that. I don't care what direction, what place you move. When that's you're not getting comfortable.
Yes. Yeah,
You're
and you
you're
just
having
deal
a
with it.
baby. It's
But
not
again, that's
happening.
different
Right.
personalities too. So
Right.
my husband was saying that he could deal
Yeah.
with any intense thing for a short period of time. So that was one of the things. If you're somebody that deals with chronic pain, like your whole life you've just dealt with chronic pain, or you're dealing with a debilitating disease, you're probably have a higher level of pain tolerance than
Yes.
somebody who never even has a headache. So
Yeah.
if you never have a headache and your headache is at a level 10 where it's debilitating, you can't see, you're not walking, you're delirious, then that's intense for anybody. But I'm saying that it's much harder to deal with than somebody who has dealt with chronic pain.
Yeah.
I have dealt with migraine headaches my whole life, and you still have to keep going. You still got to
Yeah.
take care of your kids. And there are times I do lay down with the top washcloth over my face, but I still have to get up every time Gracie says, Mom, I need something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So there's not
Yep.
always somebody there to do that for you, but that's when God gives you the ability to do it. I was like, He
Yeah.
just equips you to do it. And you think you're alone, and you're absolutely not. And He says, not once have I ever left you or forsaken you. Not
Yep.
once have you ever had to do this on your own. But so many times we think, and that's another episode that we're actually going to be doing, probably the next one. But anyway, so I just thank you guys for, I don't know if there's any last thoughts that you want to say. Thank you for just understanding that things, don't always look the way they're
Right.
supposed to look. And sometimes you're going
A
through an
lot of
emergency and
most of the time. Most
you
of the
got to
time
pinch hit.
things don't look the way that we think that they're going to look or the way that we think that they should look. And I think a lot of times that's just God trying to get us to let go of control, because we're always, as moms, most of us are always trying to control what we can, because being a special needs or extreme parent, parent to child with high needs, feels like everything is out of control. It feels like you don't have control over a lot. So in
Mhm.
the areas where you do feel like you can grasp that control and hold on, we want to just hold on to it and grip it and not let go of it. And I think sometimes in situations like this, it's just God saying, let go of it. Let go
Yeah.
of it and let me have it. Let me deal with it. I never meant for you to carry this. Yes, you are walking through it, but you're not meant to carry this as a burden. Let me carry the
Yes.
burden part of it. Let me carry the heavy stuff,
Yes.
and you just enjoy the journey as you're going. Yes, there's going to be things that are not enjoyable about messes that we're cleaning up and things
Mhm.
like that. But we can definitely find joy in the journey. if we're not trying to drag everything and carry it, and everything feels so heavy all the time.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah. So you were saying that, like, with being a special needs mom, a lot of it is outside of your control. That's one of the
Yes.
things that God has had to really work with me on, is that because I'm kind of like, I like order. I like things,
Yep.
in order. I've really improved on the controlling type of my personality. But before, I was like, I controlled because I didn't want pain. I controlled because I didn't want something to be uncomfortable for me. So I would just make sure I was the one that led. But I
Yep.
also wasn't really considering everybody else's feelings. I wasn't like, controlling where I was yelling at everybody. I'm just saying
I
I would make
was.
sure that my environment was always conducive for the best outcome. And the only way I could make sure that
Mhm.
happened is if I was the one that took charge of that, or whatever that
Right.
is. But with Gracie, I'm telling you, I always say, she's the one person that has been the most challenging and the most blessing to me. And she has
Yeah.
pulled out areas of me I didn't even know needed healing. And one of the things is that with her, and the control, I feel such a loss of control with her, because I
Yep.
can't get her to do what I'm wanting her to do, whether it's a
Yeah.
behavior issue. Like even this morning, we were having an issue with, I don't even know what it is. It's something like, it was asked last night, your shirt's on backwards. No, it's not. Yes, it is, Gracie. You got to turn your shirt around. No, it's not. I'm backwards. So she looks and she sees the tag. She goes, oh, it is on backwards. She goes, never mind. She would not turn the shirt around. And I know it was insignificant, and I let it go, and she
Right.
left it on. But I'm like, something like that. Like, it's still a
Yeah.
control issue. I wanted to
It
turn the
is.
shirt around.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those moments where she refuses, or she
To
won't get off
cooperate. Yeah.
a situation. And I'm like,
Yep.
Gracie, let it go. And she won't. And I just
Yeah.
realized, hey, I guess I've lost this argument. I have to let
Yeah.
it go. And that is hard
Yeah.
as a parent, as an
It
adult,
is. It is hard to think
to
that we
let
don't
it go
have
and let your child
control.
just,
I've been listening
think
to
the
so
way they
much
want to
of
think.
Danny Silk lately, and as he said, the only person that we control is ourselves.
Yes.
It's a lie to think that we can control anyone else. You can get the people to cooperate by manipulating, or by, even strong arming people into doing things, but the only person that we can control is ourselves. And a lot of times we don't do that, but we want to have control of all this other stuff out there, like our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And God didn't give them to us to control. He gave them to us to train and lead and direct, and not to just, I'm in charge, so you have to do what I say. It doesn't matter whether it makes sense. I'm the parent, you're the child. That's not the way
Yes.
that he doesn't do that with us. And we are not supposed to do that with our children either.
Mm-hmm.
So
That
yes,
is definitely an old school type parenting, and I still
it
think
is.
there's timeless principles on raising your children, but there was a time where, like, children were not supposed to be seen or
Yep.
heard, they're and, it was my way or the highway kind of thing. My dad was definitely like that. Like, I don't need to
Yeah.
tell you don't need to give you an example, and I was always
Right.
like, "Well, I wanted to know
Because
why,"
I
and
said
so
so.
I find that I give my kids way too much explanation for why I'm doing what I'm doing, and there probably needs to be a little bit more of because I said so. But growing up, I was like, why am I getting in trouble? Or why is this matter? Or why this rule this way? I mean, that's just the way my brain
Mhm.
was. But I
Yeah.
definitely was raised in a generation of, I don't need to give you an explanation because I'm the
Well,
parent, I said
because
so.
kids weren't
But that's not
considered as
necessarily healthy
people.
either. So,
No, well, kids weren't considered as people. They were just considered as children, and you're not important yet until you get to this age. But if they
yes.
don't learn how important and how valuable they are when they're young, then they
Mhm.
grow up like, some of us did, and not feeling that we have value,
Yeah.
because we were always shut down over and over
Mhm.
and over again. So we need to learn how to treat our kids like little people, and that
It's
they
so
are
cute.
important,
Little
that
people.
they
They are
are
little people.
important,
Yeah.
um, and that they do have a voice, and it does matter,
Mhm.
even when they're being very demanding, and
I said, that's hard as a mom who's got a child whose behavior is like,
right. It is.
It is.
It is. I'm telling you, Loving Your Kids on Purpose, that book has been a game changer, and we're like on our second or third time listening to it, because it's
Mhm.
so good. There's so much good stuff in there,
Yeah.
um, with raising your kiddos. So yes, I'm loving it.
Well, anyway, thank you guys so much. We're coming on to it. We're trying to keep these episodes short again to at least
Yeah.
30 minutes so that they're consumable for on quick times. But
Yep.
anyway, we just thank you that if you are tuning in and you're like, why wasn't this up in the morning? Well, this is why. We're just
Yes.
I'm gonna edit
It's
this and
been
get it up
rough.
and get it up as soon as possible. But we just thank you. Thank you so much
Yes,
for the
yes.
ability and the privilege to come and serve you and just share our lives, and all of that, as messy and as unpredictable as it can be.
Yep.
We thank you. We love you. We honor you as our family, as our tribe. Share this with another mom that needs it. Like, honestly, we don't want to keep this to ourselves. We love you all and we can't wait to come back again. So have an awesome week.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us and listening to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a mom who could use a little extra love and support. We'd love to hear from you too. Leave us a review and let us know what you think, or send us your ideas for what you want us to tackle in the junk drawer. You can email us anytime at junkdrawermamas@gmail.com. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow Deena at Specially Empowered Moms and Christina at Faith Through Foster Care for more encouragement and updates on our upcoming books. From two mamas in the throes of extreme parenting, we want you to know that you're doing a great job, mama, and you don't have to have it all together. But what's hidden can't be healed, so let's keep sorting through it together, one step, one story, and one laugh at a time. See you next time when we tackle another item in the junk drawer of life. Have an awesome week.